concussion in amateur athletes. Now the purpose of this article was to study concussions in high school and college athletes specifically. So to do this, researchers from the University of Pittsburgh ran tests before and after athletes sustained concussions. So basically what they did was take two groups of 19 athletes from a variety of contact sports, such as football and hockey, just to name a couple. The first group of 19 were athletes that had suffered no previous concussions, whereas the second group of 19 were athletes that had suffered 3 or more previous concussions. So for the researchers to actually do their testing, they developed a computer program called IMPACT. And what IMPACT does is measures the athletes' cognitive abilities based on their performances on the IMPACT test. So one of the first tests the athletes went through was a memory test. So what would happen is when the athletes are looking at the computer screen, random 3-letter sequences would pop up, and this would continue to happen. And what the athlete needed to do was to keep track of the order of these random sequences. They also had to do something very similar to this with pictures. So randomly generated pictures would pop up, and the athletes would have to keep track of the order so that they could get the best score on the memory test. So following the memory test, the athletes had to go through a reaction time test. So on the screen, let's say a blue square pops up. What the athlete needs to do is click the left mouse button as quickly as possible. Whereas if a red circle were to appear on the screen, they would have to click the right mouse button as quickly as possible so that they could get the best reaction time and then get the best score on the test. Another part of the reaction time testing was a test called color matching. So for example, let's say the word red appears on the screen, right? It just says R-E-D. The color ink of that word red, let's say, is blue. What the athlete needs to do is say what the color of the ink is and resist the temptation to actually say what the word itself is. So I'm sure you guys have probably seen something similar to this. So obviously for the first one you'd say green, and then the next one red, and obviously not read the word itself. So after the researchers got all of their data and finished the tests, what they found was that the reaction time for the first group of athletes that initially had no previous concussions, but then had suffered their first concussion, their reaction time stayed the same, whereas athletes that had suffered 3 or more previous concussions and then sustained an additional concussion, their reaction time went down. They also found that the memory for both of the groups went down. And I pulled a chart from the article. As you can see, the height of it shows the IMPACT symptom scores. And just like you'd expect, they went up after the injuries. So why should you actually care about this? Well, some of you might be involved in contact sports right now. You might know someone that's involved in them, or you might become the parent of a child that's involved in contact sports. So with that in mind, it's important to know that compounding concussions can negatively impact brain functions.